NCDOT, we have many different divisions. Most people know about DMV, which is this green here at the top right. Is that we also have the Port Authority, we also have aviation, and most people know about highways, right? The Division of Highways that's in NCDOT. But we also have rail, we have a ferry division, and we have turnpikes. If you talk about what is it, 540? We have that division as well as the global park. So there's many um different divisions and business units within NCDOT. And our vision is to, in short form, is really to make sure that we're connecting people, products, and places safely and efficiently across our beautiful state. So today we're going to talk about the rules for state procurement. You're registering with the state. We're going to talk about the electronic vendor portal. We're going to talk about some procurement methods, some solicitation methods, and competition evaluations, how they are done. We're going to talk about the award process as well as contract monitoring. I'd like to start with also covering, we're going to talk about rules. What's the difference between a rule and a law? What's considered a goods versus what's considered a service as it pertains to purchasing for the state. When we say delegation, what does that mean? And what about policy? And what are the different types of contracts that we have with the state of North Carolina? I like to start also with just talking about the hierarchy within purchasing for the state of North Carolina. So the highest level is the NC General Statutes, which is really the laws that are enacted by our legislators. And from those statutes, we have what we call administrative codes, or the rules for enacting the laws. How are we going to enact the law that was put in place? And then obviously to cover that, we have policies, which identifies, really the course of action that the agency is gonna do in following the rules. How are we going to follow the rules? And that is in our procurement manuals, right? And we have two actually for non-IT goods, the Department of Administration Division of Purchase and Contracts, affectionately known as P&C, handles all purchases over delegations for goods and services that are non-IT. And then IT has its own statewide IT procurement office to manage purchases over delegation that are IT related. And then each individual agency has its own purchasing manual, which must be in line with the purchasing manual that is maintained at our higher level, which is at P&C for non-IT goods and for the statewide IT procurement office for IT goods. So, and really at the agency level, the manual looks more like a procedural standard operating procedures. How we're going to complete the task? What are the steps to get that done? And I'd also like to talk about the governing authority for, just kind of mention some of it a little bit previously, talking about the hierarchy for purchasing contracts for goods and services. If you look on the General Statute, Chapter 143 and Article 3, you will find the administrative code. You will find the general statutes that relate to non-IT purchases for the state of North Carolina. And for the administrative code in Title 1, Chapter 5, it also talks about the purchasing requirements for the state of North Carolina. They have the same thing for IT, just located differently. In the general statute, IT is located in Chapter 147, and administrative code for that is Title 9 in Chapter 6. And so I also like to add state construction, which covers really obviously the construction or renovation of any type of alteration of a physical property that belongs to the state that is done through state construction. And they also have their own rules, laws that governs how they can conduct their purchasing as well. And those laws can be found there that you see on the screen, those chapters there, 116, 143, and 153. And they as well have a construction manual that includes procurement processes. So who are the potential customers who are your potential customers if you want to do business with the state? There's a lot of them out there. As you can see, we have 28 executive state agencies. We have over 2,500 public and charter schools, 58 community colleges, 16 public universities, and over 500 municipalities. So that's quite a bit of opportunity for you to do do business with the state at the state level or at the local level. I also like to just kind of point out the list of the state agencies that we have for North Carolina. And if you look in the second column, types of agency, the ones that are indicated by cabinet, those are the agency heads that are appointed by the governor, and the council or the heads of those agencies are our elected officials. And then there's a listing of the support departments as well. So how do we identify need? The agency is trying to answer these questions, right? When it comes to my department, we need to know, like, what are you buying? How much does it cost? Is there funding in place for it? How do I buy it? What process do I use? And what documentation do I need to get that done? So our procedures are determined by what you're trying to buy and how much it costs, right? And is it a good? Is it a service? Is there a delegation in place for this particular purchase? Do we have mandated resources for this particular good or service? And we'll talk about what that is. What is mandated resources versus the open market in just a couple of minutes. And also, are there any special circumstances concerning this purchase that we need to keep in consideration? So what is a good? For the state of North Carolina, well, a good for any definition is really something that's tangible. You know, it's all commodities, whether it's supplies or materials or equipment, anything really that's tangible. And for the state of North Carolina, for purchases that are goods, there is a vendor charge of 1.75%. And that's just some examples of, something tangible you could put your hands on. And some more examples, those are office supplies, obviously. And then when we talk about services, what is that? That's something that's intangible. It's really a task that's performed by an individual or company that really requires special knowledge. You have some expertise and considerable experience, some similar capabilities in this particular area. And an example of that would look, this is a plumber, right? He has to have some specialized knowledge, some experience, some expertise into providing this service. This power washing, same thing, requires special knowledge, some expertise in doing that. So these are services. And we talked about, I mentioned mandated resources. I just kind of want to talk about before any state agency buys anything, we are required to first consider whether the good and or service that we are looking to acquire, is that good or service listed on the mandatory state term contract. And we're going to talk about state term contracts in just a moment. But is it on the mandatory state term contract? Can we get it from Correction Enterprise, right? Is it something that's available through any of those other listed items there on the screen? If so, then we must get those items from these mandated resources. They are mandated. We have to use them. We must first seek them when making a purchase. If they do not have it, then we're going to do what we call open market. We're going to do, in most cases, a competitive process and actually purchase it from a vendor, actual vendor versus one of these entities here. Statewide term contracts. These are established for non-IT by the Division of Purchase and Contracts, and for IT, they're done by the statewide IT Procurement Office, and they're used by all agencies unless they're exempted by some type of statute or rule or special terms and conditions that are specific to the contract. These state term contracts can be either mandatory or convenience. If it's mandatory, then the agencies are required to use them. They are required to buy the good and or service from this state term contract if it's identified as mandatory. If it is identified as convenient, then the agency has the option to use it or do a open market process, right? So for convenience contracts, it's up to the agency whether they want to use the state term contract that's put in place by either purchasing contracts for non-IT goods or the statewide IT procurement office for IT goods. And they also, these state term contracts, you can search them on either PNC or IT websites to see, what they are and what types of services or goods are on these state term contracts. That's also, and also it will tell you the length, the time, the contractual dates of that's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, the dates of the state term contracts. So you may want to take if there's something that you want to offer to the state, you want to go out and see if there's a state term contract that's out there and that's in place. One that tells you how long that contract would be valid. It will also give you an opportunity to look at whether you want to, there's contact information on the state term contract. You can reach out to that individual that's identified and see when they plan to do another, compete the contract again. And it gives you a timeline and know if you have an opportunity to perhaps be one of the awarded vendors that will be on the contract for any renewed contract that they do. We believe that these state term contracts offer lower prices. We definitely have good quality products there, and also shorter delivery times. Let's talk about what is open market. When you say open market, what are you referring to? So for purchases for the state in terms of open market, according to the rules and the regulations set by the state, where there is no mandatory resource that must be used, then is called open market, right? So you're either going to use a mandated state term contract or correction enterprise, or and if those items are not mandated and it says convenience, I remember I said if it says mandatory, you have to use the state term contract. If it says convenience, then you don't have to. If you don't use the state term contract for items that are there on a convenience contract, then you will have to do what is an open market. You will have to do a competitive process where it's applicable. And certainly competition is the cornerstone of government purchasing. So we want to do that in every opportunity that we can. We talked about, I mentioned delegation. What does that mean? So all purchases under the delegation are processed and executed by the agency. They're done in-house. If it's over the delegation, it must be approved for non-IT goods and services. That's done by PNC. For IT, it's done by IT. So most state agencies have a $50,000 goods and services delegation, and I think IT just recently, I need to check and see, they raised their delegation, but it was previously $25,000. I will update that. Let's talk about what does a purchasing policy look like. And as I stated, I work for the Department of Transportation. So this is just an example of what one could possibly look like and how we manage purchases in-house. If you talk to another agency, it might look slightly different than this, but it'll be very, very similar because, again, we're all using the same rules and meeting all the same administrative codes for purchasing for the state. So for NCDOT, if it's something that's less than $10,000, we consider that a micro purchase or very small, whether it's goods or services. And we really encourage our business units in our different divisions to use their P card, which is a procurement card that very much like a charge card, a credit card that approved individuals have. And so if it's $10,001 up to the small purchase amount of $29,000, whether it's goods or services, we currently require informal vendor quotes. If it's an RFQ or IFB required for services, we do something slightly different. We want to use our documents, or what we call use our paper, because our documents, our solicitation documents have terms and conditions that are attached that must be met. And for some of our services, for example, our janitorial contracts, they must meet certain requirements. They can only use certain materials. Some other materials are prohibited, and we need to make sure that the awarded contractor understands, agrees to follow those either requirements or if something is prohibited, not to use it. And we want that in writing. So for those types of contracts, we would use our documents again, because we want to invoke the state terms and conditions. For anything that's $29,001 up to $50,000, we still consider that to be informal. But competition is required, but we won't advertise it. So it won't be posted, but we will require vendors to agree to the state terms and conditions. So we will be using our documents, IFB or RFQ in most cases. It could be a RFP if it's more likely it would be a service. But for that dollar range, it's probably going to be a IFB or RFQ. And for anything over $50,000 is considered a form of purchase. And we do require the vendor again to agree with our terms and conditions. So we will be using our solicitation documents. In this case, advertisement is required unless there's an approved waiver of competition in place. We'll talk about what that waiver is in just a second. So in most cases, contract terms are standard 3 years, and most of them read 1 year with 2 additional optional renewal years. And that's how most contracts are read. For any contracts that's estimated to be over $1 million, we do have legal within our agency that reviews it, and there's legal also in PNC or statewide IT office that will also review it prior to posting and prior to award. Let's talk about term contracts for a second. These are established for use for all agencies unless you exempt it, as we talked about. This is a basic definition of what a term contract is. Again, it can be mandatory or convenient. They are typically indefinite quantities, which means that we're not guaranteeing a vendor that is awarded on the contract that a certain number of, any particular number of products, goods or services will be bought from the contract. It's awarded based on historical data. That generally means that, if there's history there that these goods and or services are needed on a pretty a frequent basis, then it makes sense to put a term contract in place for it. And so that is what that really refers to. And again, the contract term is a standard 3 years, typically with 1 year with 2 additional optional renewal years attached to that. Any contract that's over 3 years, however you do it, right? A straight 3 years, or if you do 1 year with 2 additional 1 year optional renewals, anything over 3 years requires a different level of approval. For non-IT, it would be through the purchasing contract office. It requires the state purchasing officer's approval. And IT, of course, will go through the statewide IT procurement office for that. Let's talk about the difference between contractual services and consultant services, and they really is what's stated there. If it's a contractual service, it's really a vendor who's going to perform a work. He's going to come in and do a particular task. Again, requires a specialized knowledge, a certain level of skills and experience. And there's some examples there on the screen that would be a contractual service contract, which is janitorial and type of landscaping, security guards, building maintenance, hazardous waste, any type of medical lab services, versus what's a consultant contract. A consultant is when we bring someone in that has special knowledge or experience or some type of expertise and professional qualification to investigate and to take a look at a problem or a project and to provide us with some counsel, some analysis or review or advice, right? They're not going to actually do any actual work. They're going to come in and consult and give us some advice and tell us what they would do if they were doing it. So the difference is at the service contract level, the work is actually being performed by the vendor. At the consultant contract level, they're providing advice, They're consulting with us. And for a consulting contract, it must be approved by the governor's office. That process will be invisible to the vendor. It is something that we are accustomed to doing, and it will be done behind the scenes between the agency and either purchasing contracts for non-IT or statewide IT office for IT contracts. And of course, for any vendor that receives a payment for services over $600, we do require that 1099 form is submitted as well. Let's talk a little bit about IT. Again, their statutes are listed there in the chapters that's indicated. Of course, we're talking about buying hardware, some type of software, subscriptions, license agreement, and some type of data that we're buying. Again, there's a statewide IT procurement office that handles all of the IT purchases for the agency that's over their delegation. And so they also have state-term contracts for the items that you see listed there: hardware, software, telecom, and different IT services. We talked about, I mentioned anyway, waivers of competition. What is that? It means it's the purchase or installment or a lease or a rental of goods and services by any means other than competitive process. And most commonly, when it's a waiver of competition, is done under the condition of sole source, which means there's only really one location or one vendor that we could get this particular good and a service from. Brand specific, they're justified that they need a particular, like you have different types of copiers or you have different types of whatever, refrigerators, but they need a particular brand. You know, it has to be Hewlett Packard or it has to be Frigidaire, and the requesting agency must specify and get approved that the brand, that it makes sense that you have to have that brand, right? Not that you prefer it, but there's a business case that you could present that justifies, because what brand specific does, while there still could be some competition in brand specific, it limits competition to that certain brand. And again, competition is the cornerstone of government procurement. So we want to make sure that as open competitive process as possible is what we want to do. There are instances in which it's truly emergencies and we cannot afford the time to go into a procurement process. So we will do a purchase. We will waive competition for that, obviously. Standardization is really talking about if I'm buying copiers and all the other copiers in the building are Hewlett Packard, it makes sense that my next one be Hewlett Packard. Why? Because it's standard. That's what we've used throughout. And so I could make a business case for that. Ongoing job or task really talks about, say I'm outfitting an office and I bought 10 copiers. Well, I really needed to have bought 12. I miscalculated, whatever. We decided to add another office, whatever. But so I'm doing the same thing. I was approved for the 10, right? And so I really just want to add 2. So it's ongoing job or a task, and you just add into that. And so it's you're just going to go back and just increase the amount there. And so the administrative code is listed there for waiver of competition. There are more than 5. You see the 5 conditions there: social, span specific, emergency, standardization, ongoing job or task. But there are additional conditions that are listed. And if you're interested in seeing it, you can go to the administrative code that's listed there and you will be able to see them all. But these are the most common ones that are used to waive competition. Are there any questions?
There are no questions in the chat, but we can use this opportunity to unmute. If you have a question, raise your hand and unmute, and we can take your question. And it appears that we have no takers for this module, Jody, so we can move forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Colin. So we're going to switch gears here and move into the process you need to follow if you want to do business with the state. So we're going to talk about EVP. We're going to talk about registering that and managing your EVP accounts. So the basics for that is the takeaways from this slide is really that all the solicitations will be posted in EVP. So you want to make sure you register and identify the good and or service that you want to provide to the state. It provides a simple point of access. Vendors will respond in EVP, or they could through the normal paper submission process. So it's important that if you are responding to a solicitation, that you read it in its entirety. It would tell you how they will receive bid responses, right? Whether it's going to be electronically or whether you have to actually mail in your bid. So again, as I stated earlier, if for goods only, there is that 1.75% e-procurement fee that's attached to that. So what are some frequently asked questions with regard to EVP? You know, why do I have to pay this 1.75%? We think that it allows you, well, we do think it's true. It allows you to be able to conduct business electronically with the state, and you have to pay for that. It offsets the expense of the development, the maintenance, and the ongoing operation that allows you to be able to do electronic business with the state, do business with the state electronically. And you're also able to market your goods and or services with the state, and it benefits you. It saves you time, and the process is also easier, we think, and shortened by using the electronic process. How does my company benefit from it? Again, it's a single point of access to government entities. We believe that it increased order accuracy and consistencies. This increased access to the different markets within the state government, and potential for cost savings to the supplier in areas of processing, marketing, and administrative costs because it's all done electronically. EVP registration, obviously you will need internet access. You're going to need your federal ID or your EIN number, your employee identification number, and a valid email address. And you're going to get a copy of this presentation. So there's a login page there with some instructions here, like vendor. If you're not registered, obviously you need to register and complete that process. And if you do need some assistance, There it is, the contact information and email address for the help desk. And those folks are extremely helpful and will be able to get you the answers that you need. With regard to is new, relatively new for us. Even still, I say what's good about this is free. When you register, it will notify you of the business opportunities as they are posted. So it's important that you identify, you use the right codes when you register and identify that good and or service that you're really great at, that you're able and willing to provide for the state. I use this opportunity to tell our vendor community, please don't check every box that's there. It is unlikely that you're able to provide everything to the state, right? And so my staff, my team, when they're out looking for vendors to send RFQs to, where it doesn't require a competitive process, they just want to send you and ask you for a quote. If they pull it up and they see you've checked all the boxes, they have no idea what you can actually provide, right? So what are they going to do? They can move on to the next vendor. So please make sure you spend the time making sure that you identify that good and or service that you're able and ready to provide to the state. This allows you to keep your vendor information updated. That is very important as well. That's how we reach you. Your email address need to be current, right? All your information need to be current because that's how you get information with the state, from the state. Managing your account, again, you're going to get a copy of that. So that's the link to job aids that are out there to help you. It helps with changing your password if you need to do that. Update your profile information. You can add, delete, or edit your contact information there. Update your name or add or edit a location. So please make sure that you, again, manage and keep your account updated. Are there any questions?
The questions that were posted in the chat have been answered. Again, this is an opportunity to unmute, raise your hand, and we can get some questions answered in that way. And we have a hand, Cassandra. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, did you share that if we register for that site, we would automatically get emails when things were available for, I guess, the areas in which we check? Did I hear
Yes.
that correctly?
You did.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm registered on the site, but I'm not getting those automatic emails. So I definitely want to take a look to see why that is, or maybe there's just nothing in project management right now.
It could be that you just haven't posted anything. They use the codes that you identified. So yes, it could be that. You will only get notification for the codes that you identified.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then John is going to chime in. Go ahead, John. You're on mute, John.
Hopefully this helps. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with commodity codes and EVP, there is a way for you to select your commodity codes. Typically, when you go in and you register the first time, it will show these are the commodity codes that will show up on the vendor search. There is a separate list that could be there that will email you what commodity codes you select. So I'll go ahead and post the instructions in the chat so that folks can see, where do I go to find these instructions and how do I do the one that affects the search? So, the 3 to 5 commodity codes that you want people to know that you really do versus the things that you want to know about when opportunities come out. That one that you want to know about is where the emails will come from. So if you don't have any selected there, then you won't be getting the emails. And again, if there are no opportunities, you won't get any emails on those.
All right. Looks like Kathy, I believe. Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, I just have one quick question, and that is I'm a service, I do training and I help people with to let go of stress and to really refigure their mindset. And how often do you find that these agencies post things like that is needed? Because I have been checking the RFPs quite often with my codes. And is it just something that they don't post? Is it easier for me to go directly to the agencies? I'm looking for a little help or suggestions. Thank you.
I would suggest, Kathy, and thank you for the question. I would suggest that you reach out to the HR departments within the agencies. That's a good place to start. Because while I cannot say obviously that what you're looking for probably won't be posted, I just think that it would be good to do a personal connect and let them know, maybe ask for, 30 minutes on a calendar, come in and talk about, what you have available. We have a EAP program here with the state, and maybe they can connect you with being able to use some of our service providers, and you could be some type of adjunct to that. So that's what I would suggest you do, in addition to
Thank
what you're
you.
doing. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and Leanne, if you want to unmute.
Hi. Hi,
Hi.
ladies. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to just clarify and double check. The EVP covers the entire state of North Carolina, correct?
The agencies, yes, and public universities, yes.
Okay, and that's just the agencies you listed in the beginning of this tutorial.
Yes, that should be all of the agencies.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
there are
that
some
means-
some
Yes.
local governments that use it as well. So, but not all of them. It's not necessarily consistent that all the school systems, all the counties, or all the municipalities use it.
Okay, no, I was just really asking to find out if there was any way I can streamline paying for all of these different applications I use to source for the state of North Carolina. If like this could be my number one go-to for everything, or do I still need to use others?
For local governments, I would suggest you continue to use others because, again, as John said, they may not be utilizing EVP with the state. They're not required to do so. But it certainly is the go-to for state agencies.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And sorry, Joni, I keep interrupting.
You're fine.
For those
Please
agencies
interrupt.
that for those agencies that don't use EVP to post their opportunities, they may post it directly on their own websites. And they do have the opportunity to post it on the hub office's solicitation opportunity dashboard, which you can find on our main website. I've also posted the link. It's a Power BI dashboard. I posted the link to that chat to that list on this chat. We might want to talk offline a little bit. I heard you say that you're paying to find different things. So, public entities, their opportunities are public. So, you might be paying to try to narrow down some things, but all their information should be out there. They may require you to register to get into certain sites. Some of the local governments want you to register before you get to see the opportunities. I think they're trying to keep out hackers and spam in that regard.
Okay, I appreciate that. And yes, I would definitely like to talk.
Okay, I'll put my email in the chat if you need it.
Okay, thank you so much.
And so we'll take one last question from Tarika.
Good morning. I was looking on the Hub website for the commodity codes. I was looking for general freight arrangement for 18-wheelers. I own and drive 18-wheelers, but I wasn't seeing that. So is transportation services, is that just the category that trucking will fall under, or is trucking a service that Hub does not really focus on, and that's more of a DOT um, field?
I'm sorry, Carla, if you guys could answer the question about the commodity code letter.
So the commodity codes are associated with your registration in EVP. You will not find them on our website. We do have links to trainings that will help you to find the commodity codes, and we're going to post that in the chat. But it is a process of reviewing the commodity codes and matching them up to the goods or services that you offer, and then selecting the ones that best represent what you do.
And for what I would add for NCDOT, I would suggest that in the counties in which you want to work, that you get in touch with the divisions that represents that county, and they do have different trucking needs, but some of the divisions do it differently. So you would need to understand what their needs are, understand who are the vendors that they use, for instance, for aggregate or asphalt. You know, we have some truck pickups, which we go get the product from the quarry, or we have what we call delivered. They bring it to us. So you need to understand which way that particular county is handling it. So the best way to do that is really to work directly with the different divisions in the areas, the counties in which you're looking for work for NCDOT, and understanding who their vendors are, meaning who provide the asphalt, who provide the aggregate, who is their salt deliveries, when do they do them, that sort of thing. And that information is best given at the division level because it's different. It's not consistent across the divisions. Obviously, their needs will be different just depending upon location, that sort of thing. But Samantha Bryant is on the call. So Samantha, if you would put your information in the chat, she is
Good
on my
morning,
staff,
everyone.
and she will be glad to assist you, Tarika, in getting the correct contact information for the different divisions.
Thank you so much. And it's specifically for 18-wheelers. I think when we talk about asphalt, that's more of dump trucks, and I don't deal in dump
Well,
trucks. It's just okay.
again, whatever their trucking needs are, I was just using that as an example, but they may have others that my point is they do those directly. Those contracts are done directly at the different division levels, and so they are not awarded through my office. So it would be best to have contact information with the different divisions for you to get that type of information in some cases.
All right. So we're going to
Thank you.
squeeze.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. We're going to squeeze in this last question since Madeline has been waiting, and then we'll move on. So go ahead and unmute to ask your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Robin and Mr. Cockney. So, already registered with the ABP. Something that I came through is sometimes when you apply to a procurement opportunity, you don't have they don't give you the feedback. Somebody that the person that do the bidding process times, I am not able to see what was my mistake, or sometimes maybe they can help you with that, or send a feedback. Okay, because was my first, I applied to 3, I never get any communication or nothing, and sometimes can be something that they can help you. Okay, you are doing this wrong, you can fix that. So maybe can be something that you can say to the agencies, that at least say, okay, you need to fix this stuff, or you still don't have the time enough, or your books don't look like that you can apply for this kind. I know that some are between 50,000, that usually are the ones that I apply for, but because are a small amount, so because it's going to be my first one, so that is something that I want to let you know, guys, and maybe you can help us with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Unfortunately, a lot was broken up. And Joni, did you get that question? I think I got the gist of it.
I think just based on the last portion of what she said, the gist of what I got, she's asking for feedback or some type of
Yeah.
Why didn't I get awarded kind of information. So you're right. Typically we do not respond to the vendors that are not awarded. What you can do, and I'll talk about a little later, but I'll go ahead and just kind of at a high level, we have what we call a public records request. And so after a bid has a solicitation that is posted, after it has been awarded, it is public information. You can contact the agency and ask to have a copy of the awarded contract or all bids that were submitted for the contract, right? And award documentation, and that will give you what you're looking for in terms of why they chose the particular vendor that they did. You can ask for a copy of the winning solicitation, and you can see what the winning bidder submitted. So that is one way to get the information that you're looking for. Agencies handle public records requests differently. So you need to contact the agency to see how, some of them you can just send the email straight to the purchasing office and they are managed it that way. Here at NCDOT, the public request really goes through communications and then they reach out to me. I get the information, give it to communications, and they actually send it to the vendor. That's how it's handled here at NCDOT. When I was at DBI, it was different. It came directly to me and I responded directly to the vendor. So my point is contact the agency. You just understand what is the process for getting public records documentation.
All right. And so I think we can move on to the next module, Joni.
Okay, thank you. So again, we're gonna shift here and we're gonna talk. Oh, sorry, change it. We're gonna talk about the Hub program, and because listen, you got the Hub experts on the line. I just kind of really flow through this kind of quickly, because definitely anything Hub related, you got the experts on the line, and they certainly can provide you with any assistance you have with regard to that. We do talk about Hub in terms of historical underutilized businesses and the executive orders and general statutes that really kind of put it in place. And we do have a 10% goal for Hub participation for both construction spending and goods and services. That means that each agency is working towards doing a minimum of 10% their spend on goods and services or construction in to Hub vendors. And that is we market it in our procurement processes, as well as obviously EVP. There's the application process, the certification, and the recertification that are now done through EVP. So the agencies do make effort to do that, to increase our Hub participation levels. We do that in several different ways. We've added language to our solicitation documents that encourage hub vendors to respond. You have no chance of being awarded if you do not submit a bid response, right? So you have to respond to the bids. We also project upcoming opportunities. We do a annual spend plan, procurement plan with particularly with purchase and contracts for non-IT goods and services. There's notices of opportunity. We do work with the hub office. We do check their websites. When we have non-competitive, the lower dollar amount contracts that are available, we do utilize these the information in EVP to locate hub vendors. My staff is required to do so, to at least attempt to do so. Obviously, if there is none and no response, then we must move forward with the award. But we do make an effort to make sure we include that. We do, as kind of mentioned, a hub plan in which we provide, what the agency plans to do for the year in terms of those goods and services that we can market specifically to our hub communities. And so this is just an example of what a hub plan could look like. And this is particular to NCDOT. It was one of the ones that we submitted. And so what we are doing on our open market purchases, remember that's the range that's 50,000 and above. We advertise, those solicitations are advertised, they're required to do so. We try to solicit at least one hub vendor. The standard hub language is added to the solicitations, as I stated. For our open market range that's in the middle, it's a minimum of 3 quotes, and we use, again, our solicitation documents because we need our the state's terms and conditions to be agreed upon. And of course, in the smaller dollar range, P-card is authorized. We do make efforts to work with the different divisions and business units within NCDOT to help identify hub vendors who could provide those goods and services to the divisions and business units, and so give them some options. So we do, and that is a big part of what Samantha does. And so that's what, in terms of a hub plan, that's an example. This is an example of what it looks like. So again, you're going to get this presentation. So there's the webpage for the certification. Obviously, you need to register in the EVP, download or complete, the certification application, the reciprocity application. It required, you got to provide the required documentation, and that's there. The vendors must recertify every 4 years. The uniform certification applications, the 3 possible applications that are there, you need to only fill out one, and the one that's appropriate for your business and what you want to do. The reciprocity certification options are listed there on the screen as well. So the required documentation for all applicants is what you see here listed on the screen. Again, you're going to get a copy of this so you can have it. This application must be signed, your work experience, your resumes that talks about that, your proof of citizenship or your permanent residence. Those are the documentations that's needed to verify that. Proof of ethnicity. Again, those are the documents that can be accepted as proof of that. If you have professional licenses, if there's required, you need to provide that as well. So on and so forth. And it continues with the list of required documents for your application. 2 letters of reference include contact information, the nature and duration of relationship. How do they know you, right? You need to make sure you provide that as well. If you have a disability and that is applicable to what your application, then you need to provide some type of proof of that disability. the required business structure required documents. So what you see there, if you're filing as a corporation, those are the information you need to provide with that, the articles of incorporation, your transfer ledger, your shareholders agreement, your corporate bylaws, and there's any amendments to that. Again, this is for corporation. If you're doing an LLC, your articles of organization and your operating agreement. Again, if you're doing an LL limited partnership, your partnership agreement, etc. So these are required documentation. Again, you're going to get a copy of this, and so you will have this readily available to you. That concludes this section. Are there any questions with regard to that?
We do not have questions in the chat regarding hub certification, but if you have questions, feel free to unmute. Joni, I do want
Hi.
to address.
Hello?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, this is Andrew Lindsay with AKS Gibson Promotionals. Wanted to find out about SBE recertification. Is that covered under Hub, or is that a separate office?
There is an SBE certification for Hub, and there is also an SBE certification for DOT. Which certification do you have?
The one with Hub.
Okay. And so, yes, it's covered under Hub, and I can put a link in the chat to go to our website. Did you say you are recertifying?
Yes.
Heck, and hopefully your certification didn't expire. Have you been receiving information about recertification emails?
Not yet. It's not due until October.
Okay. And so I think about 60 days out, you will begin receiving notifications to recertify. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you will be able to recertify.
Okay.
Make a note on your calendar. Just don't let it expire.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Joni, there is a question in the chat about insurance that we did not cover. And the question is, can you clarify which types of insurance are typically required for government contracts and how those requirements vary based on the size or scope of the contract?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for the question. Is exactly what you said. The requirement for insurance can be very different depending upon what the what we're purchasing, right? And so what I would say to that is the solicitation document will tell you specifically what insurance is required for that. So you need to follow that. There is no standard one insurance or amount of insurance. It really depends on the purchase itself. And so in order to make sure that you are meeting the requirements, then you need to make sure that you read the solicitation document in its entirety. It will tell you exactly what insurance is required for that particular solicitation.
All right. And so, Joni, I think we are taking care of the other questions in the chat. If you want to move forward to the next module.
Thank you, Paula. In this section, we're going to talk about the different types of solicitation documents, what content or what is in the solicitation document. And we're going to talk about the difference between requirements and evaluation criteria. So for solicitation planning, what's required information to provide it to my staff? Like, what are we looking for the end users to provide for us? Again, they must identify the need and define it, right? That's their job, to let us know what exactly it is that they're looking for, good and or service. They get this information together and develop the specification and the scope of work. They provide that to us. We get involved, we review and authorization of the documents and the processes. So they're going to give us, identify what their need is, give us the specific information that's related to the product that they're looking for. And then we are going to draft our documents that's appropriate for again what they're looking for and when they need it, and what process we are going to use to procure the good and or service. We prepare again the solicitation document that is done in the procurement office. We either post it if it is required to be advertised, or we send directly to the vendor if it's either done through a approved waiver of competition, or it's in the smaller dollar amount range and we are not required to advertise it and we can just work directly with a vendor. Then again, we utilize the information in the vendor portal to let us know what vendor, we're looking for. I keep saying copy is copy, then we're gonna go look and see what vendor, for the commodity code that's associated with that, and what vendors are out there that can provide that, and then we will be in contact with them. So again, it's really important that you identify that good and or service that you are ready and able to provide to the state, and 2, that you keep your contact information current, and 3, that you are responsive. So make sure you are checking the emails inbox that you identify as your point of contact. So because again, we are trying to make these purchases, and typically, time is a factor in most things related to business, and so we will only be able to wait so long for a response, and then we're going to have to move on with the responses that we do get. So the vendor, we're talking about some tools that's within the EVP for vendor direct quotes. This is a EVP tool. It is for goods or services. It's used for purchases up to the 29,000. So it's informal. It's a small purchase, right? The purchaser is able to select from a list of registered vendors. Again, the information you need to be registered, and your information needs to be current. And it is it must be on vendor letterhead or branded. So for the IRQ, which is the informal request for quote, that's another EVP tool that we use for goods and or services. This one is for purchases that is up to $50,000. And we're able to add language and specifications according to what it is that we need, the good and or service that we're trying to procure. Again, the purchaser or the buyer is able to select from a list of registered vendors. Then we're going to send the quote directly to the vendor with no time response restrictions. What that means is we're going to process it as quickly as possible. So please make sure you are monitoring your point of contact email, and so that you can receive any you be able to respond to any RFQ or IRQ that you get. It's typically a 4-page document. You're going to agree to the North Carolina terms and conditions, which will be attached. For our RFQ, which is a request for quote, again, this is a document that's sent directly to the vendor via email. It's used for non-advertised procurements. You agree to the North Carolina terms and conditions because they are attached to the document. We could be used for seeking competition, usually up to $50,000. Anything over that, we typically would not use RFQ because it's just generally more done with IFBs. It says the response could be sent via fax or email. I guess in some procurement office, they still do use the fax. We do not use it at NCDOT, mainly because we do not have a dedicated fax line. I'm not even sure the fax line is operable at NCDOT any longer. Certainly was used, years ago, but now with technology, the fax is not something that's really used. And these are the responses that open upon receipt versus As the advertised solicitation, it is only open at the day and time of the bid opening that's indicated on the solicitation document. The invitation for bid, this is the IFB, is more commonly referred to. This is when we have a well-defined goods and services or simple services that we are seeking, generally used for purchases over $50,000. We would do some type of evaluation. Most likely, in most cases, these are awarded based on lowest responsive bid meeting specification, more commonly called low bid meet spec. So it's posted for a minimum of 10 days. That is a requirement for all postings, a minimum of 10 days. There is a public bid opening, and it could have a potential site visit. We'll talk about site visits in just a second. The public bid openings, just so you know, you certainly, whether it's done electronically or the solicitation requires you to mail your responses into the office, then the bid opening will be done the same way in which your responses were done. So if it's electronic submission, then the bid opening will be done electronically. If it was, you have to mail your bids in, then we will have a public location opening at the location, and you certainly have every right to attend. What I like to tell people is that certainly if your schedule allows, please come. But you also have the option of contacting the procurement specialist that's identified on the solicitation document. You can email them after the opening date and time and ask them for a copy of the bid tabulation sheet. Oh, right. So we always, we will have a listing of every bid that was submitted and the cost that was associated. Unless we think that we're going to go into negotiations, then we will not make the cost public at that point in the process. But if it's a low cost meet spec, then we will, because that's pretty common. But again, the point here is that you don't have to actually show up. You can email the procurement specialist that's identified and ask them for a copy of the bid opening sheet or the bid tabulation sheet, and you can get that information sent to you. Requests for proposal are more commonly referred to as RFP. These are for more complex services or a combination of goods and services, and it's typically over $50,000, well over $50,000. That's when the department knows what they want at the end, but they're looking for the vendor to propose different scenarios or different solutions and how to get to their end result. The evaluation method can be other than lowest cost meet spec. There will be some type of evaluation, which means the evaluation criteria will be provided in the solicitation document. The document will say exactly what category, what criteria will be used to evaluate it, and what weight or what significance is assigned to each criteria. It's posted again for the minimum of 10 days for RFPs that typically posted longer than 10 days. The basic IFB is probably we're going to post it for 10 days, right? RFP is probably going to be posted for 15 days, if not longer, simply because they're more complex and it requires, the solution or the winning proposal would be more involved. And so you need we want to make sure we get the best value for the state. So we want to give you the appropriate amount of time in order to provide the best solution recommendation to us. Again, these are public bid openings, which may also have potential site visits associated with them as well. Request for information, RFI, is simply just that. It is a request for information. It ascertains the level of interest of potential vendors that's out there. It's not a solicitation document. There will be no award as a result of RFI. There are no terms and conditions attached because we're not going into any type of contractual agreement. After the response time, then it is simply canceled off of EVP. Again, it is an opportunity for the state to gather information and ascertain this levels of interest from potential vendors And then they'll make a decision based on information they get from the RFI as to whether they will later post a solicitation that, with the intent to award. So the different solicitation document sections are what you see here. In section 1, you're going to find information on the purpose and the background, why the agency needs this purchase. They're going to talk a little bit about historical data and what they use it for. In section 2, this is where you're going to find the, just general information, the question period, how long it's open for, the solicitation schedule, when would the solicitation, when does it open? What's the bid opening date and time? Contents that's included, the number of pages. If it's a, if you're required to submit it by the normal paper process, then it will tell you how many copies that you're required to send in, digital copies as well. In section 3, that's where we talk about the method of award, the evaluation process, if confidentiality information will be set there, will be listed there as well. Evaluation criteria. So we are going to do something. However, we're going to evaluate it. It'll be stated there. If it's low cost meaning specification from responsive bid, then that will be indicated. If it's best value, the criteria will be identified later in this section. Requirement section 4.0, that's where you're going to get your basic contract terms, pricing information, warranty information, vendor experience, if there's any certain level that's required, if any samples are required, that information will be there. If there's any certifications or licenses that are required, that information will be in section 4.0. If we're going to do any type of background check, that information will be in section 4.0 as well. If we are requiring specific, if it's a service and we're requiring personnel from a vendor to have certain levels of experience, then that would be in section 4.0 as well. And 5.0 is where we talk about scope of work, the product specification. That's when we can talk about what our objectives are, what are the specifications for the good and our service that we're asking for. If there's any deviations allowed or deviations, that information will be there as well. And project organization requirements are listed in section 5.0. For contract administration, you will find that in section 6.0. That's where you will see if there's any reporting requirements with regard to that. We're going to identify the project manager that would manage this process once it's awarded. So my office, the procurement office of any agency, is responsible until the project or until the solicitation is awarded. Once this solicitation is awarded, the relationship with my office ends and you will begin working directly with the end user. And so the person in the division or the business unit within the agency that you'll be working with will be identified, contact information provided. If there's type of how we want to handle any dispute resolution, that language will be there as well. If there's any needed contractual changes, the appropriate way to do that, which will involve my office, we will come back in if there's any need for any contract changes, and of course, the requirement to let us know of any product recall, that sort of thing. And then we have attachments. That's where you're going to see your terms and conditions. That's where there's some instructions to the vendors. Pricing forms are there. If there's a financial condition that we ask you to sign off on, that information is there. If we need to add any maps or diagram, that information again is also provided in attachments. Then I want to talk a little bit about the documents of change, so if we need to do something different and what that looks like. So addendum, as an example, if I have posted a bid and it opens today, June the 18th at 2 p.m. It is now June 18th at approximately 10:20 a.m. If I have not received any responses yet, then I will be concerned about 2 o'clock closing. So I will go out and move the bid opening date from June the 18th at 2 p.m. to maybe June 20th, some future date at a future time, right? In order to do that, I will use an addendum. So I'll fill out an addendum form, fairly simple, and I will post it out the same place that the solicitation was posted. So any changes that need to be made to the solicitation document before opening date is done using an addendum, right? A request for clarification. That is obviously after the bid has opened, we're reviewing it, and there's some point of clarification that we need. It is not an opportunity for a vendor to change his bid. The example I like to use is confidentiality. Some vendors like to send in their bids and they have the word confidential, on every page. Well, the state would never keep your pricing information confidential, ever. What we will do, as I stated earlier, is we will refrain from making it public knowledge at the opening of a bid if we anticipate that we're going to have to go into negotiations. But at the point of award, pricing will be provided. It is public record information, and we will not shield that. And so if you mark confidential on every page, we're going to send you a clarification indicating to you that we will not do that. You will need to sign that and send that back to us. Another example is the state will, if you mark certain information other than pricing as confidential, then the state we're going to send you a clarification letter, and we're going to indicate to you that, are you sure this information is confidential? Because we will redact it. We will not make it public information based on your determination that it's confidential. If we receive a challenge to that, we, the state, will not defend it. It's going to be up to you to defend. So we're indicating to you that if someone sues us because for this information, we are not going to defend your position. That cost and the labor of defending that is going to be on you. And you're going to have to sign and send that back to us because we are not going to defend your classification of confidentiality. So that is what a clarification is used for, just to make sure you understand that this is how, just to make sure we understand that you understand, one, what the state will or will not do, two, that your response indicated something. We want to make sure you understood that. Again, it's not an opportunity to change your bid. We will not allow you to change your bid through a clarification process. Sometimes there are mathematical errors, obvious mathematical errors. We're just going to indicate to you that you understand that you listed a bid price of, make it simple, $20, right? And you had 6 items that was, or 4 items that was $6 a piece. That really comes up to $24, if I'm not mistaken. And so, but your final price on your pricing was $20, right? We're going to clarify for you, ask you to clarify for us, is your $6 the price, or is it, you got to be here for $20. That's the only thing that we're going to accept. You can't change it. We're going to make sure you understand that. Best and final offer. So this is a tool that is only used, a document really, that is only used if there's a negotiation that takes place. You should always provide your best offer to the state when you are responding to solicitation, because negotiations is not a requirement. We do not have to negotiate. And in most cases, we do not. It's only with the larger, more complex projects in which, or specialized work in which we may go into negotiation because it's in the best interest of the state to do so. But the best and final offer simply documents the changes or any additions to the contract that was submitted. So your completed bid response will, in 9.9 times out of 10, is going to be the contract. So if we go into negotiations, and in negotiations, we can do price changes, right? We're gonna document what our final agreements coming out of the negotiation. We're gonna put that on a document that we call best and final offer. It is not a huge document. It's typically 2, 3, maybe 4 pages. 4 pages will be huge for them. And we're just gonna identify the items that we agreed on during negotiations. And we're gonna ask you to sign that. We are going to sign it and becomes a legal part of the contract along with your bid submission. So that's how we codify the any negotiations that are done. Amendment, that is the tool we use to make changes to a contract after it's awarded. So if we need to change, if we want to extend the duration of the contract, then we do an amendment to push the end date out, right? If we need to add additional products to it, we are doing an amendment to add, to do whatever, anything that needs to be changed to a contract after the award is done through an amendment. So those are the most commonly used documents of change on the state level. Now that's a lot of information, but it's good to know. So this is a, you will see this little square in the solicitation documents. You need to, again, make sure you read the entire solicitation document. And I get it. Sometimes it's like watching paint dry on the wall, but it's important that you understand the language that are in these documentation, because they are binding, like shall, must, and mandatory. If those words are used and you don't provide that, then your bid is non-responsive and we will not do anything with it. We will not evaluate it. So you need to pay particular attention to the language that is using. You need to make sure you sign your solicitation submission. You're indicating that you understand and you agree, right? I tell people, if it's not signed, it's not a valid offer to the state and we want to evaluate it. I add here, there's only one instance that I know of in my career in which unsigned solicitation document was accepted. And that was in the case of RFP, a request for proposal. In an RFP, you're required to send in, as part of your RFP, is a letter of intent. And that letter of intent indicates your agreement to, our terms, your agreement to, provide what what we're asking for, such all those all that language that indicates that you intend to be in full partnership in agreement with the state. And that letter was signed. So that considered, the lawyers and interpreted that to be the same as the signature in this box. That's the only time that it's ever signed the box, because if you do not, it's not a legal offer to the state and we will not evaluate it. This box you will see also in the located in our posted solicitation. Just really quickly, the issue solicitation, that date is obviously the date that solicitation is issued. It may not have a time associated. It should just have a date. If there's any pre-bid meeting or site visit, that information will be the date and time will be listed there inside the solicitation document. The date, time, and location will also be more clearly identified there. But on this chart, submitted written questions, the date and time, the deadline for that will be listed there. Provided responses to the question. You may or may not see that line there. Some agencies use it, some do not. But just know that that's the intent of the agencies, to try to provide responses to any written questions by that date and time. So you need to just give them a little leeway, because if anything in the process occurs, then that may push that out a little bit. I personally don't like to provide that, because it sets an expectation that I can't guarantee, but some use it and that's fine. Just just know that that's their intent to work towards that date with regard to responses to questions. Submit bid, this is an absolute, unless they use, when we talked about just a style ago, the amendment in which they pushed the opening date and time out, that is an absolute open time and date. Date and time, right? Any bids received after that date and time is late and will not be considered. There are no exceptions to that. Period. I repeat, there are no exceptions to that, period. If your bid is late, we will not receive it. We will not. If you're bringing it to the agency or you bringing it personally and dropping it off, we're not going to argue with you. We're going to accept it, but we will not open it. We will not. Contract award date, again, that is the intent to try to have everything reviewed, decisions, recommendations made, decisions finalized, and be able to award on the date that's, if a date is listed there. And of course, the contract effective dates. Those last two lines may or may not be included in this table in the solicitation document. Vendor questions. So there for bids that are competitively that are posted, that are advertised, you have an opportunity to ask questions. So there's a period of time from between the time the bid is posted, from the time the bid is posted prior to the opening date in which you can provide written questions. They need to be written. So you need to email the person indicated, the procurement specialist that's indicated in the solicitation document, what your written question is, right? You could call them. What they should do is tell you to send your question in writing and they'll respond at the appropriate time. If they decide to answer your question over the phone, please know this, that is not legally binding on the state. The only way to make the response to your question legally binding is that you send it in written form. At the end, let's say I have a bid that's opening July the 16th. I probably want to make sure I have the bids, any written questions by definitely by July the 12th, right? My intent, and so if I say July the 12th by 2 p.m., any question that I've received in written form on July, whatever did I say, 10th at 2 p.m., then I'm going to take all the questions, put them on a table, right? If it's a procurement one, I'm going to answer it. If it's specific to the good or services, I may send it to the end user, ask them to respond, give me an answer. I put the answer on the chart, right, next to the question. And then I'm going to do, remember, an addendum is the change or an addition that needs to be done to a solicitation prior to opening date. So I'm going to do an addendum, and I'm just going to copy and paste my chart, my written questions, the answer, and I'm going to post the addendum the same location that the solicitation is posted, and that way everybody will get the question, all the questions and all the responses at the same time, right? That makes my response in writing to your question is now that addendum is an legal part of the contract. So I'm legally bound by my response in that to your written question. Again, they may answer your question verbally over the phone. It is not legally binding. Send your question in writing. All right, talk a little bit about site visit or potential site visits. So if there's a site visit or pre-bid meeting necessary, if the vendor would need to physically see the location to gather additional information in order to help you provide a more responsible bid response, right? So if it's a site visit, it's going to be identified as either mandatory or urged in caution. As you see here on the screen, if it's mandatory, it is mandatory. We're going to, in both cases, we're going to have a sign-in sheet the specific date, time, and location is going to be in the solicitation document for the site visit or the pre-bid meeting, whether it's mandatory or urged and cautioned. The vendor will sign in and sign out for mandatory. At the start, if it's mandatory, at the start of at the time that we said that we're going to start the site visit, we're going to take up the sign-in sheet. If you are late, you will not be, you can attend. We're not going to argue with you about it, but your offer will not be accepted. You cannot sign in. We will have taken up the sign-in sheet, and that's it. You can remain. You're welcome to do so, but we will not accept any bid that you submit because you have not, you were not on time, and that's a requirement. Offers from late vendors or vendors who did not attend would not be accepted, and that's for mandatory. If it's mandatory and you intend to respond, you need to be there on time at the specified date, time, and location. If it says urgent caution, we're telling you, we really think you ought to come, but if you don't think you need to come, then that's fine. We're going to do the same thing in terms of making sure the date, time, and location is public, is located in the solicitation document. We will have a sign-in sheet. If you're late, you still can attend. You're more than welcome to do so. Attendance is not a requirement to accept offers. So for urgent caution, we think you ought to come, but if you don't think you need to come, then that's fine. We still will accept your bid, and we will consider it when after, when the bids are due. So that's the difference between the two. We think, and the other thing I would say is at a site visit, there's conversation between the vendors that are there and the representative of the agency, right? Sometimes it's someone from my office, sometimes it's someone from the end user is there, and maybe it's both. But either way, whoever's there representing the agency, in your course of conversation with them, you naturally going to ask some questions, and I get that. And they are going to try to answer you to the best of their ability. Know this, their response is what? Not legally binding on the state. So the site visit, whether it's mandatory or urgent caution, it will also take place before the written question period, right? So even if you go to the site visit and you have conversation with the person there that represents the agency, still, and if they give you an answer and you like it or don't like it, whatever, still send your question in writing by the deadline for written questions, because the response in writing is what is legal binding on the state. So again, conversations happen all the time at these meetings. Make sure, even if you got your answer at the meeting, send the question by the question deadline so that it can be included and on the addendum and makes it binding on the state. So it's really important that you do that. The middle instructions, make sure you follow the instructions on the solicitation document with regard to submittal processes, deadlines, mandatory return information, mandatory site visit, or whether it's urgent cautions. It's really important that you make sure you follow the directions in the solicitation document. Vendor requirements, this is really talking about specifications that you must meet or submit with the proposal to be found responsive. If we require you to send us information and you do not include that with your bid response, your bid is considered non-responsive. We can't do anything with it. We will not evaluate it, right? So just make sure that you provide the required information. Requirements are either yes or no, right? We said we wanted brochures. Did you provide it? Yes or no, right? You either met it or you didn't, right? We're not trying to evaluate the, when I say we, I mean the purchasing officer's office. We're determining whether your bid is responsive or not. We're not trying to evaluate your response, just that was it responsive? So the information that you provided, we're not trying to evaluate that information. We just want to our job is to make sure that information was provided. And once we determine all the responsive bids, then we are going to give those responsive bids to the end user And there is an evaluation team that is established in which purchasing have a seat on, but we have a non-voting seat. We just want to make sure the process is followed, that the evaluation criteria is what they use to evaluate, that the recommendation is documented and the support information is there. That we just want to make sure the process is done correctly. So if your response is not responsive, we will not give your bid to the end user for evaluation. Just so you know, an example is whether you can do it or not, right? You provided it or not. If we tell you that the delivery must be done within 15 consecutive calendar days, and then we're gonna have a line under there for you to write in how many days it'll take you to deliver. If you put in 20, your bid is non-responsive because we said we needed 15 and you said 20. We can't do anything with that. So it's not responsive. So we won't do anything with it. Yes. So again, it's a yes or no. Does it meet the requirement or does it not? Right. Evaluation criteria. This is really talking about how the vendor this is really the opportunity where you tell us how you plan to complete the project. And it also tells what the state will be evaluating on, like some example criteria that's listed there. Is your vendor experience past relative experience, a relevant experience to what we are, the goods and or service in which we're asking for. We may ask you for that. Staffing plan, it may be something we're looking for. We need certain skill sets on the staff that's going to be working on our project. So we would indicate that you have to provide us with that information. We're going to evaluate that. The technical approach, how are you going to meet our needs, right? What processes are you going to, what is going to be your approach to meeting our need? You know, you provide it in some type of narrative, some written form, and that will be evaluated. I take questions if there are any. Paula.
So I think we have answered the questions in the chat and can take this opportunity for raised hands. And Leanne, I think your hand went up first.
Yes, I just had a question in regards to the non-mandatory site visits. Not showing up for the non-mandatory, is that evaluated in the opportunities that are not just the lowest price based?
Not at all. If it's non-mandatory, it's not a factor at all.
At all. Okay,
No.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else? Seeing no takers, I think we can proceed, Joni.
Thank you.
Wow.
All right, in this section, we will talk about direct submittal, the collaborative process, EVP process, and the solicitation, search and response. So there are different ways or options to submit your proposal or your bid submission. It's really important that, again, you read the solicitation document because it will tell you how your bid response should be submitted. So it's important. These are just different direct submittal over email. You know, RFQ responses are sent that way. IRQ responses are sent that way. The collaborative process tool, which is within e-procurement, you could respond directly with that. If for EVP, we're going to indicate whether we're going to do it electronically or we want your response to be sent by mail. So it's really important that you pay attention to the directions that is provided in your solicitation document. With regard to the collaborative space requisition is the informal quoting and pricing request function that's within e-procurement system. Really, we use it to for requisitioning to obtain goods and services from multiple vendors at the same time. You agree into the terms and conditions, they are attached to this space. And it's used for purchases up to $50,000. And again, there's a link there that you can go in and get some additional information about the collaborative space. The solicitation search and response is used to post formal, and typically these are IFBs and our RFP solicitations. It allows us, the agencies, to advertise our solicitations for goods and services. Is where we see open and fair competition. That's where we post our notice of award. So again, if it's a low cost meet specification, that's fairly simple. You know, we determine which bids meet the specification of the bids that meet the specification, which one is the lowest cost, and that's the awarded. So that's fairly simple. Of course, the ones that are evaluated based on criteria, that's a little more involved process, and so it takes a little longer to do that. But once the evaluation is done, has been reviewed and approved, then we will award. And so we post notices of award on the same location as well. So it allows you, again, to market your goods and services. This is the place where you will find work you're looking for, and this opportunity is available 24/7. There's free registrations associated with this and notifications of opportunities as well. And you also get to view the tabulation, you know, what vendors sent in a response and how much money when we're not negotiating. At some point, that information is provided anyway, the pricing, but you get to see the tabulation and award information in the same location as well. So this is really just a example of the EVP screen. You can see where you can see search and response to solicitation. You can browse and see what they are. It will publicly display all the solicitation posted without requiring you to log in. You don't have to log in to see it. You can just hit browse and you can do that. It allows you, the vendor to respond to postings, but you will, in order to do that, you will need to log in, obviously, and register if you have not done so. This is another screen for example of the solicitation page here. This is what the screen looks like. In this one, like where you see the purple, pink, hot pink pointing down to, this is where you would click to respond to solicitation. So again, the instructions are there. I think they're easy to follow once you get into this system and utilizing it. This is another example of that page and just different requirements. You see, you can check the steps to take, the checklist, which is steps to take, and the content section is there as well. You can click the review prerequisites to see if there are any prerequisites required for the solicitation. Then up in the right-hand corner, there's a clock that's clicking down. This indicates the remaining time that bids will be accepted. So these are for the electronic submitted responses. When it gets down to 00000, then it will no longer allow you to submit a bid. Are there any questions?
No questions in the chat, but again, if you have a question, feel free to unmute, raise your hand. And Carnisha, I'm sorry, if you want to unmute and ask your question. And if you're speaking, you are on mute, Carnisha. Still on mute. We can't hear you. All right, so we'll move on to Michaela.
Hi there. Good morning. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just had a quick question about the solicitations and opportunities. Is there a particular time of year where requests for proposals are posted, or could it be any time of the year? yeah, I'm just curious if there's a particular time of the year when opportunities are posted on EVP.
It is not. So they're just based on business needs for the different agencies. So there is not a normal cycle in which, you know, RFPs is doing this time of year versus, no, it just really depends on business needs. So there isn't a good way to try to judge that in terms of cycles.
All right. And so I think Carnisha is trying to put her question in the chat.
I'm unable to unmute now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is, I went to the site this morning and I went to a solicitation. It says electronic bids are not permitted for this solicitation. Please submit according to the instructions outlined in the attachments. When I go to the attachment, it's not showing a way to respond to the solicitation. And on the page, response to solicitation is not, it's like crossed out to where you can't respond. In those situations, like how are we supposed to go about getting more information on the job? Because the attachment didn't have any information.
So I'm not sure what you mean. Well, I mean, when you say attachment, so the instructions on how the bid submittal would be inside the solicitation document itself. It would not be a separate attachment. So if it says that electronic submissions are not allowed, then the only other option is it would be a mail-in response. So you should look for mailing addresses, date and time. It should be in there. If you could send Samantha an email to tell us exactly, you know, I don't know what solicitation you were referring to specifically, but we'll be glad to take a look at it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We do have a comment in the chat that says, I am doing NEMT transportation, but I never see anything posted when searching. And Sharon, Siobhan, you can unmute to elaborate if you want to clarify. And I suppose she does not. Oh, she says she has bad service. So NEMT, I'm not quite sure. It says NEMT transportation, Joni. I don't know if that rings a bell with you.
It does not, so I would need additional information.
Yeah, and non-emergency
medical transportation.
Okay.
Oh.
And she's making the observation that she doesn't see anything posted when searching. So
just off the top of my head, I would suggest that you reach out to the Department of Health and Human Services and their procurement office there and see and have a conversation and see if they have a vendor liaison person identified, or nothing else, the manager, the director would be available, and to have a conversation with them in terms of the different, that the agency is huge, right? So there are so many potential opportunities there. I am just not that close to that. So I would suggest that you contact the Department of Human and Health Services. They should be able to provide you with some assistance and some ideas and some points of contact that should be able to help you.
All right. Someone also commented they provide mobile drug and alcohol testing services, and the same, do not see anything for my services. So,
Those are very specialized kind of, and we have a agency contract for hours. Of course, with DOT, we're required, we have federal requirements to provide that. So if you will contact Samantha, she can just reach out to us. Samantha, if you reach out to our safety folks, Robin and his crew, I'll tell you after, the name is eluding me right now, but I'm sorry, but I could give you, you can reach out to them.
That
I
would
know that we
be-
do have a contract, but I'm not sure what the dates are for that.
And that might be, Joni, Miss Beth Cox. I know at one point
Yes, that's
they
the name
did
I was trying
have
to remember.
a
Yes,
contract in place that actually did the drug and,
yes.
testing services. So I'll reach out to them, and if that person would provide me with their contact information, I'll be happy to follow up with you.
And so that is for NCDOT. I will, Samantha can also just maybe see if she can help you with contacts of other agencies that would use that service as well.
Yes.
all right, seeing no more questions, I think we can move on through the next module.
All right. So in this section, we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to cover the evaluation process. Specifically, we're going to talk about the bid opening, evaluation methods, reference checks, that executive order 50, and then clarifications and baffle processes. So the bid and proposal opening, so that's part of the formal bid process, is publicly open at a date and time and location that's specified in the solicitation. But remember, I had the little table up there in which it had opening date and time. And so that information is provided in the solicitation. Late bids and proposals are not accepted. There's one thing I want you to walk away. There are a couple things I want you to walk away from. One is that you must be registered in EVP. You must keep your contact information current. You must be responsive to bid solicitations. You must sign it, and it must be timely, right? Either one of those things not happening greatly diminish your ability to do business with the state, right? Tenders is taken at the bid openings, as I stated earlier. You can contact the purchasing agent or procurement specialist that's listed on solicitation during the evaluation period. You really should not be talking to anyone else during the evaluation period. So from the time the bid is posted, the solicitation is posted, until the award, you really should just be working with the procurement office and the identified individual within the community office that is managing that procurement. So it's really important. Again, the tabulations are posted with names of bidders and pricing, unless the pricing would not be included if we anticipate having to go into negotiations. And again, typically this is for the really complex RFPs. So in the normal run of day IFBs, then both the vendor that submitted the bid and the price that was submitted will be provided. So evaluations methods, we got what we call low cost meets spec. That is what it's called in the industry. This is, again, we're going to receive all bids that come in. We're going to review them for completeness in my office. Again, we're not evaluating, just that if we ask you to provide certain information, that information is there. If you needed to sign a certain section, that signature is there. If we determine that then all the requirements are met, then it's a responsive bid. And in this case, it doesn't, we don't really, it's not our decision. So we do work with the end user, but really at the end of the day, for low cost me spec, it is all the responsive bids and whichever one is lowest, because they're all offering the same thing. It is in the state best interest to get the best price for that. Then we have best value, the weighted method. This is really talking about the weights that add up to 100. There's different components that have different weights, and all that information will be provided in the solicitation document. It's really a scoring method, the highest number, the highest value after evaluation is typically the recommended awardee. And then we have what we call best value, which is my favorite. It's a narrative method in which we look at narrative, meaning you really, when you're reviewing it, you're writing paragraph, right? You're making a written statement of your review. You're going to look at strengths, which is really defined as a component that enhances the potential success or contribute towards exceeding the requirements of the contract, right? This is the strength of it, right? Remember, we've already said it met the minimum requirements, so they all meet minimum requirements. So what is a strength? What is that theme that's going to make it especially good? Really increases chances of meeting the contract or exceeding the contract requirements, right? And then we look at weaknesses, right? What is a risk? With this in this particular category, with their response, is there a flaw that increases the risk of this contract performance being unsuccessful? So that is what we're looking for when we do best value in narrative. So it's not a scoring method. It's really it's a weighted method, but you're doing pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses. If we are looking at reference checks, again, we will indicate in the solicitation document that we will be we either say we will do them or we may do them. If it's required to provide references, please do so. Please do so. What I will say is that we're gonna treat all of the solicitations for that particular procurement the same. Meaning if we get 5 responses, if we decide to check vendors, we're gonna check references. We're gonna check the references of all 5 vendors. We're not gonna check just 2 of them. We're gonna check either all 5 or none. We're gonna ask the same questions to all 5. We're gonna document who we talked, what day we called them, what the question we asked, what their response was, and who provided us with the response. So we're gonna be consistent. It'll be standard across the board, but reference checks may be a requirement. Clarifications and baffles. Again, I talked a little bit, so I won't do a whole lot on that, on what clarifications, again, it's really, it's usually a yes or no, right? Confirmation kind of response. If there's something unclear, we are going to make sure the clarity is provided on our case. And, I talked about confidentiality. We want the vendor to be clear that the state will not go to court to defend your confidential information. So you have to take that on if it comes down to that. And we're also going to be clear that under no circumstances will we keep your pricing confidential. We will provide that to anyone who asks after award. So we make sure you're clear on that. Best and final offer. So this is, again, I think I talked a little bit about this too. This is used during negotiations. Used only during negotiation. Again, it is really the documentation of the way of memorializing the agreed upon additions or what's different after the end of a negotiation. It's placed into a really simple document, sent to the vendor. They sign off on it. The state signs off on it. It becomes a legal part of the contract. And that's how we document, or that's how we legalize, if you will, best information that is received after the bid closure date, right? So remember, the contract is typically the solicitation document. If we want to add additional information or even change something that's in there before award, then we're going to use we're going to do negotiations and we're going to use best and final offer. But also remember, we're not required to negotiate. So it's always, always, always in your best interest to offer the best, make the best offer to the state, because we may not, and typically do not negotiate, but we do in larger cases. I would say we do. Executive Order 50, which is a price matching opportunity, that is for North Carolina vendors, which is defined as being headquartered in North Carolina, is only for goods. It is not available for services. When you submit your bid response, you must indicate at that time that you want to have the opportunity to price match if the criteria calls for the opportunity to do so. And that would be if you are willing, if your pricing that you submitted is within 5% or $10,000 of a non-resident vendor who would have won otherwise, then we're going to give you an opportunity to match their pricing. So again, you must indicate when you submit your bid that if you are within that range, you want the opportunity to price match. We cannot allow you to make that decision after the fact. So again, that is what Executive Order 50 price matching is. Are there any questions?
There is a question in the chat regarding the 1.75%. And the question is that amount on the supplies or the labor or both? Is there any way to have this waived?
There is not. My experience is no. It is on goods and it is what it is. Yeah. So no.
There are no other questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, you can do so now. I do see a
Excuse
hand
me.
raised. If you want to go
Hey,
ahead,
hello.
and unmute. Go ahead.
Hello. My name is Avery Thompson. It's kind of offbeat a little bit, look, but it was a question I was waiting to ask. So I am registered in HUB. My thing is, I do get little jobs to come through for electrical. I'm an electrical contractor, but I was wondering, is it a specific agencies listing that y'all have for electrical?
No, I think the answer to that is no, right, Carla?
Well, the one thing that I do want to know is whether you registered your commodity codes under construction.
Yes, ma'am.
And so you did choose electrical under construction.
Yes, ma'am.
Because to me, it would have closely aligned with state construction solicitations.
Okay. So what I see is basically what they have come through, correct?
That is correct, but you may want to research a little more to make sure that you have hit the correct commodity codes. And John,
Okay.
John has some input here also. John?
Okay.
Hi, thanks, Carla. My understanding of the postings that are put in EVP that are related to construction, if the state construction office puts it out, it's going to go, the notifications are going to go to people who have indicated that they do construction related services. They don't necessarily dig down into the level that says, I do striping or I do concrete or I do drywall. They're pretty much construction related projects, and that's as deep as they go, is my understanding. So that may either limit or incredibly expand the number of emails that you get related to projects that are construction oriented. But the electronic vendor portal search can help you in that. There are different ways that you can search for those solicitations to say, I'm looking for the construction ones. Similarly, on the Hub bid solicitations dashboard, you can go in there and select just construction oriented projects. You won't be able to go down and say electrical specifically, but you'll be able to see what those projects are. And I would say the vast majority of construction, repair, renovation, new construction is going to involve electrical, even if it's not at the prime level. So if you see something in your area and that that you are interested in, I would highly encourage you to attend the pre-bid meeting to learn more about it and ask questions related to electrical, and meet other people who may be bidding as a prime on that and need electrical contractors.
Gotcha. Understandable. Appreciate that.
All right. And Carnisha, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
I guess that was kind of sort of my question too. We do more so polished concrete. So I am seeing the work coming in for construction. So I'm like, okay, I feel like we're in the right section. But with concrete, it could be outdoor concrete, it could be getting poured. I'm just more so trying to see if we can narrow down the searches for that's more in line with the concrete finishing that we do. And there's no other way of really being able to do that besides, like you said, open up the general construction emails that we're receiving. It's not really a way to narrow those, searches down to exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. All right. And we have CBS that was hand raised, or did they lower their hand?
Oh, hi, good afternoon. My name is TJ. And yes, I just had one other question. So maybe you guys mentioned this earlier on, or maybe not, but is there a point of contact for like the aviation division for supplier needs, or, is there a point of contact for that department? I don't know.
Aviation is a part of NCDOT.
Okay.
So that would be Samantha on this.
Okay, so is there, like, can I contact Samantha?
Yes, my information is in the chat.
It is, okay, for some reason I can't see
I'll
comments.
send it.
Okay.
I'll put it back in.
When I send the email, I am going to copy to the extent that I can all of the information in the chat. So it will be coming to you.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Carla.
This
You're
was
welcome.
informative session today, so we appreciate it here at CBS. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have statewide asphalt.
Yes, they kind of answered my question, but I'm still kind of curious about it. If I, like with my business, I do seal coating and striping, but I went into the construction part and it's not giving me anything. So I don't even know where to go.
John, can you jump in on that? I'm not sure about the construction side either.
Hi. Yeah, I was literally just looking at that. I saw your question, and I know that there are many firms that do striping, and there's got to be some way that people identify that they do that other than just in their company name, which we do encourage when folks are agencies are looking for vendors, that they do a search, and that they search based on the trade that they're looking for. So like striping. I was just looking through the commodity codes and the construction codes for striping, and I wasn't necessarily finding something right off there that said, hey, this is the code that you should use. What I was also trying to do is see if there were other companies that were striping companies and see what commodity codes they had picked. I didn't see any of those that like really jumped out at me that said, yeah, I got to pick this for striping. One thing that I might think about is and it's kind of roundabout, so bear with me. If you go into EVP, the solicitations, and you look for closed or awarded projects, and you put striping in the keyword, and you select the filter that includes ones that have been awarded or closed, you may be able to find who was actually awarded that project, and then do an EVP search for the vendor name, and you can dig down into that vendor and see what commodity codes they selected. So you might be able to find it that way. Apologize, I thought I would be able to find that for you pretty quickly, and I was not.
But I also would add, John, that I would, for the, from an NCDOT perspective, for the counties in which you are interested in working, I would make sure I'm in touch with the division to see what upcoming projects they have. They also do, planning out as well, and so it could give you some idea. I would attend any um bid meeting that they would have, or any community engagement meeting that they will have, just to give you an opportunity to get in front of the folks who are leading that and let them know that you're out there and what you want to offer to the department.
And if I recall correctly, Joni, on the divisions, when they're looking for people to do work, they're looking based on NAICS codes rather than the UNSPSC commodity codes that EVP uses. So when you're looking for that, EVP doesn't give you the opportunity to say, these are my NAICS codes. But if you're looking on like the solicitation opportunities by the division or statewide with DOT, I believe they do include NAICS codes related to that.
Yeah, and it could be an opportunity to connect with a prime in which striping is something, that they could offer with the construction. So again, I would, and for those divisions in which you want to offer work, you're available to provide work, I would just begin some conversations with them, understand how they do that, and is a timeline that they do certain things, what's upcoming. And to John's point, have they just awarded something? You can go back and, request the documentation of that. So to give you something to go on and be able to use for the next opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You're on mute, caller.
Yeah, I was just saying we can move forward, and I'm thinking, Joni, let's go ahead and go through the next two modules, since that'll
Yep.
take us to the end, and we can ask
Absolutely.
questions at the end.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so in this section, we're gonna talk about award notifications, purchase order, and invoices. So for award notification, again, we are going to send the purchasing agent for the department is going to, the purchasing office for the agency, I'm sorry, is going to send the certificate of award to the awarded vendor. We're also going to provide, obviously, the purchase order associated with that, and then we're going to attach in our documents, our records, a copy of the purchase order as well. And we also will post the award on EVP. We try to do it within 3 business days. That's our goal. And once the award is received, again, as I stated earlier, the vendor will contact the contract administrator or the end user directly in their relationship. They're working together with obviously begin at that point. Information included on purchase orders, obviously the description of the goods or services that we are purchasing, a contract number, the appropriate counting, pricing, delivery. Terms and conditions are also attached if there's any comments that's there as well on the purchase order. For invoicing, this is the bill to address on the PO. We want to make sure, in the invoice, we also include an item description of the services that was completed that we're paying for, the associated purchase order or contract number, and sometimes those 2 numbers are the same. So the purchase order is sometimes used in most cases for NCDOT, it's also used as the contract number. So just so you know that they may be the same thing, and that's fine. You want to ensure that your remit to address is current, where we sending payment to. Typically, the state does net 30 in terms of payment. So we do electronic payments, and for the checks writes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you must submit a form to OSC or the Office of State Controller, and you can get that information that's there listed. So to be able to do electronic payments, I believe. So the next section, we're gonna be talking about contract management, inspections and testing, renewals and amendments, vendor protests, public records requests, and some of this we've talked about, so we can go through this fairly quickly. The kick-off meeting is really after the award has occurred, and that is when the end user should be working with the vendor directly for the very first time. That's an opportunity for them to meet and clarify terms and conditions to make sure people are on the same page. We're going to clarify any goals or objectives. Again, make sure we're, singing from the same hymn book. We can communicate roles and responsibilities and clarify any, delivery or any type of other expectations that we have. Inspections and testing, the state is going to notify you, obviously, if we receive damaged goods of the orders inaccurate. If the shipment is late, we're going to be reaching out to see what's happening. Just so you know that we won't pay an invoice until inspection, if one is required, and on the inspection and the goods are accepted. So they have to be, if a inspection is required, that has to happen, and the goods have to be accepted before we're gonna pay. We don't consider it delivered until if it's some type of disposal of waste or debris needs to happen, then we won't consider delivery complete until that has happened. You are basically responsible for leaving the installation area ready, clean and ready to use as you found it. For vendor complaints, we really encourage our end users to work directly with the vendor, have the open line of communication. Certainly, if things reach the level in which you've said you've had a conversation with the vendor, the end user had a conversation with the vendor, you haven't seen an improvement, then you can bring my office into the conversation. That makes it a more stringent, and we're going to escalate it, and we're going to give you what we call a remedy or a cure letter. I'm sorry, so I'm trying to think of what we call a cure letter. It's a formal notification that you are not meeting the contract expectation, and give you an opportunity to respond to that, a deadline to do it, and you should respond back to us in writing, because that's a more serious than a general conversation with the end user. We hope that all or any concerns or complaints will be able to handle immediately. Again, we are going to hold to our end of the contractual obligations, and we certainly are expecting our vendors to do the same. With regards to renewals, again, that would be a amendment to the contract, and that when my office would come back to be involved with that. Just remember, most standard contract terms is 3 years, 1 year with 2 additional renewal options. If anything, any combination of that adds up to more than 3 years, we are required to get the state purchasing officer, either for IT or non-IT goods, to agree to the longer term contract. Renewal are optionals. Again, it's the option, and it's up to the state to exercise the option or not. They do not have to. We're gonna, obviously, if we are going to renew, we're gonna give you prior notice before the current expiration date, notification of that, and then if necessary, we can generate a new purchase order or update the existing purchase orders. With regard to amendments, again, these are the document that is used for any change to the contract after the contract award, right? And only the purchasing office can amend a contract, right? Only our office. We should be involved in that process. Vendor protests. So you do have, for vendors that are submitted and you don't think that we did what we said we was going to do, right? We didn't evaluate according to the way we said we was going to evaluate. We didn't award based on low cost and expect, because that's what we said. If you feel and can document substantial, you have the opportunity to submit a written request to the procurement director or the procurement director in the agency or to the state purchasing officer, either the IT or non-IT one. And you must submit it within 30 consecutive days from the date of the contract award. So once we notify contract award, you got 30 days to submit. All protest letters must contain specific reasons and any supporting documentation, right? Specific reason. You just can't say they didn't follow. How did they not follow? What did they do that they shouldn't have done? Or what didn't they do that they should have done? So again, the information needs to be specific, and certainly we'll take a look at that. And one of our jobs is to make sure, our job being the purchasing office, again, as I stated, for those larger purchases, the RFPs that are being evaluated based on criteria. I said there's an evaluation team that's put together. Typically it's people, subject matter experts that are on the team. But my team have one seat on that team. It's a non-voting seat, but our purpose of being there is to make sure they do what we said we were going to do, right? That's my job as a procurement director and what my team is responsible for doing, so that we cannot have a successful protest. That means we missed something. So my job is to make sure we do what we say we're going to do, right? And that's our review, and that's our approval level, saying that that's what we did. We are not rubber stamping the choice of the vendor. We're not doing any of that. What we are saying, we, the procurement office, is saying that we follow the rules and the administrative code for the state of North Carolina, and we followed the process that we documented and said that we were going to follow. So, but if you don't think that we've done that, you have 30 days from the date of award to provide specific reasons in any supporting documentation, and it will be reviewed. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about public records requests. Again, is this is only for awarded contracts. If the contract was never awarded, it's not public information. Right? It's work in process. It's not public information, and it's only public information after award. You would submit your request to the agency. Again, agencies do it differently, so just make sure you understand the process that the particular agency that you want the documentation from, how they want to receive their public records request. And you simply can ask for the documentation. It may include redacted information. I stated some vendors will indicate some information is confidential. We will not give out confidential information, but we also would not defend it either. So just so you know, note pricing and current vendor on current or past contracts can be released while contract is out bid. So a lot of vendors like to, the thing is timing on this one, but a lot of vendors, if there's a janitorial contract that's being, it's in the process, it's being solicited, right? It's been posted, and some vendors would send in a public records request to say, what did the current vendor, let me get a copy of their contract and see what was awarded, right? That information can give you some idea, but please know it may be way off part for what's currently being done. So that's information, but you need to make a judgment about how much of it to use and whether it's current information or is it good data today. That's what was awarded maybe 2 years ago. Is that a good price for today? But you can get the information. The only thing about current vendor information on solicitations that are currently out there posted is the timing, right, of you getting in the public records request and the information being able to be pulled together and get back to you in order to give it to you, and you be able to submit a bid on time, a bid response on time. So I just caution you about that, but you certainly have the right to ask for it. Again, if you're looking for future work and you want to know what currently is done, this is a great process to use to get information around, what has worked in the past, what was awarded, what information, what did their solicitation document look like. If you want to look at a request for a proposal, those are more complex and serious ones. Ask for a copy of it, spend time looking at it, see what the different bidders' responses look like. What information did they provide us, right? What is our documentation? We do a recommendation. It states every reason in there why we supported the awardee, the recommended awardee, right? So again, this is a great tool to use. But just know that is data that is old data in terms of, that's what was done the last time. It may or may not be applicable to what we're doing this time, but it gives you some idea if you have none, right? So it's good data. I think you should use it. These are quick website resources that are there. Again, you're going to get a copy of that, so you will have, you will be able to utilize these as necessary or as needed for you. And are there any final questions for me?
We answered our questions in the chat, but we are opening the floor for any other questions or clarifications that may be needed. If you would raise your hand and then unmute. Any other questions?
Well, seeing none, Carla, I would say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for joining the training today, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you this morning. Hopefully, the information was valuable to you. Please let us know if we could be of any additional service.
And Joni, there one hand shot up just as you were saying that, and it's from Statewide Asphalt. If you want to unmute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious because I'm not for sure. The last slide you had with, I think it was up to 50,000. I'm not quite understanding that. Is that for bidding, or you need to have insurance for that?
I think it
This
was
slide, the
delegation.
protest. No, that only refers to who you should send your protest to. It has nothing to do with insurance.
That's not bidding on jobs.
No, this is
Okay.
if you are saying we didn't do what we said we was going to do, so you're going to protest the award that we made.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And so, yes, Joni, thank you so much for the time you have taken to share this wealth of information with our vendors. Vendors, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. And our hub team and our DOT team, Samantha in the background, thank you all for helping with our chat questions. Amanda, our intern, thank you so much for all that you did to keep us on track. And we hope you all go and have a great day today.